Alrighty. Shalom, everybody. Make sure we have all this stuff on. We're going to try and, I'm not sure if we're going to have Facebook on today or not. And we're grateful and thankful to be on. It's our first morning on in quite some time, or a week, a little over a week on TikTok. So we're thankful to have that little monkey off our back for a little bit. And if you guys would like to continue to look for us in different platforms, also see if you can support, if you still want to go back and forth sometimes, even if it's just going on the podcast, just to kind of check in, on things, or just even, come on, like or something real quick and then jump back off. We appreciate that as well. We appreciate everything that you guys are doing to help us in the community. Shalom, Sister Barbara. We're on TikTok, on YouTube, on the website. YouTube, of course, will be later on. Shalom, Sister Betty. How you doing? Thank you for the likes, all those things, the likes, the shares, all those great things. And we're back. We're plugged back in. We're back from our suspension where they said that they suspended us because we were selling drugs or selling illegal materials or doing whatever. We're glad. I missed you guys as well. Once again, if something happens like that, feel free to look at other places. Feel free to go to the YouTube, look for hashtag FindKofi on YouTube, or, we're uploading recordings, or if you want to join us live, get the podcast, right? The Kofi of 40 podcast. Feel free to get that, right? If you're interested in classes, all the other stuff that we have going on, feel free to let us know about those things as well. Thank you so much, by the way, those of you who are into Yah's Land Project 83. And we're thankful, we're grateful for the opportunity to continue to serve in that capacity as well. And a lot of things that are going on. A lot of stuff has been coming up and popping up. And we see a couple of people on the podcast as well. So thank you so much. So can I talk about zombies coming? I don't know specifically which word or what exactly you're speaking of. So just FYI, if you tap the screen continuously, bring your scale of your likes. It helps. Oh, okay. All right. Cool. Thank you. Yeah, it's no problem. I know that the accused, we were working on stuff legally behind the scenes. And if you'd like to be a help, let's just go ahead and be 100% real. And if you'd like to help, we would be really appreciative of you if you want to, try and contact YouTube. If you have YouTube, you can contact YouTube too, since they took down our page, but the original page. But, feel free to, feel free to also contact TikTok and say, hey, you guys keep messing with this stuff. You guys keep saying, I see what he's supported of, this, that, etc. Feel free to let him know. You can do something as simple as go to I think it's info at TikTok. We're about to go higher than that. I'm giving them legally enough time, so I'm going to give them until Monday next week before we take our next legal step. But, feel free to look up the Kofi of 40 podcast. You can join live there if you have the Podbean at this PODBEAN. It looks like we got a lot of people popping up and coming out to support. So thank you guys. We finished our series while we were off. So you have to go and look on the YouTube channel. We do have everything. Hashtag FindKofi, hashtag FindKofi for the finish of the Sermon on the Mount series. So that's there, and other things we've talked about in the evenings and the risings. So feel free to look up those things. But we appreciate you all for being on. Shalom, Sister Helen. And once again, if you want to check in on the podcast and say hello, put a couple of likes there, and then you want to come back to TikTok, we're not mad at that either. It helps us with the algorithm. And that way, if they think that they shut one thing down for a little bit, all we do is we just go to the other platforms. We still put on the lives. We still do everything we're supposed to. And we come right back in there. Thank you for the shares, for the likes, for your showing up. And today I want to talk about the presentation of things. Before we get into that, though, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect this message. Amen. Also, too, just letting it be known, as you guys are going to see real quick, we've been quicker with the block button than we used to on the original page. We've gotten quicker with it. And unfortunately, we're going to have to be extremely quick with it if people are just disruptive or saying things just because people are lying on us. And so if people are going to lie on us, we're, part of the thing that we use this is to make sure we get out a message to be hope to people of many, whether it's religions, thought processes, etc. So if you're somebody that's on there, we've given instruction to those that are moderators. Feel free to go ahead, jump in, do what you got to do, but we appreciate you. And thank you for the compliment about that. I am not the Most High, but I do understand what you mean. And peace to everyone that's coming on. Namaste, hola, bonjour. Habari, mimi Kofi, Nina Franco, Katana, Nuewe, Bokotov, Bavakasha, thank you for being on. Shalom, Minister Tamara. And so we're going to get started. Thank you those who are coming from the early riser stuff. Some of you have been with us so much. We literally went from Shabbat to having our live to Shabbat Shalom podcast, and then having the Brothers in Black, to coming back again 8 o'clock a.m. yesterday, then coming back again after that to talk about, have a Halloween discussion, to then having early riser at 6:45 a.m. Eastern New York time, and all these different things. Hey, buenos dias, como está? So we're thankful and grateful for everybody for being on. We appreciate you guys so much for being fervent and being obedient, even for those who literally, I saw as soon as getting up, Yazland, 83 people already being in there. We're thankful and grateful, really appreciative. So let's get it. Y'all pray for me once again. This is the countdown. I literally am counting down. I'm so excited to have free time again to actually get some of this stuff done and caught up on. You guys don't even know. So we got a countdown. Today, I got basically 6 more days, but on Friday, I kind of have somewhat of a day off. So I kind of got 5 more days. So this is like day 5 for me. I'm doing a countdown. So after Shabbat, this last Shabbat, a lot of stuff goes back to normal. We're going to have meetings and stuff caught up. We're going to be ready for baptisms and travel and all these different things we're ready to do as a people. And so we're excited for this opportunity. Let's get into this dynamic word, this dynamic message. And yes, we believe the planets are real. We're going to get into this dynamic message. We want to talk about the presentation. All right. What are we talking about? The presentation. Right? The presentation. Because how things are presented is the reason why we have a lot of these arguments. All right. How things are being presented is one of the reasons why we have these arguments that go on, why people want to, accuse you of things that you're not doing. Thank you, by the way, for those who are joining the community. When I say joining the community, we mean following. That's what they call it. We don't believe we have followers. We believe that we have people who are followers of the way, that are of the same community, that are the same mindset, and that are trying to break free from an oppressive system, no matter if that's an oppressive system of Israelites, black folk, women, men, children, whatever it is. We are people that believe in fighting for the rights of all. And so we're thankful. And I want to talk about the presentation, right? Because the presentation is everything. The presentation is what? The presentation is everything. The presentation is what? It's everything, right? Everything is presented, right? If I present something in a certain way, it's going to cause you harm or it's going to cause you health. If I present something in a certain way, it's going to be the truth or it's not going to be the truth, right? When they say, when you come before, do you promise to tell the truth and nothing but the whole truth, right? Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you to the Most High? What they're saying is that, okay, thank you, Christopher. That's why I said oppression of all people, right? But once again, see, it's the presentation. If you come into the presentation and your mindset is, see, he said something about slavery, therefore he doesn't care about white people, you've already messed up. Because you're talking to the wrong person. And like I said, because of things, unfortunately, we have to be careful about people and what they come and what they bring. So I apologize for having to do this, but other people have made it where we can't trust people on here. I'm sorry. So it is what it is, right? The presentation, right? The presentation, the presentation of things. People get to a place where they don't comprehend the presentation, right? And what has been presented to you, right? Think about some of the stuff that has been presented. Think about some of the things that's been presented to you, right? Some of the things that have been presented to you. And because it's been presented, now you argue, right? And some of the things that have been presented, now you argue with other people about the presentation, about what something actually is. What is? what is, because it's been presented to you in a certain way. For example, George Washington, right? It is a new day. Amen. George Washington, he's been presented to you as the first president. Is George Washington the first president of the Republic of the United States of America, yes or no? Right? He's even on the $1 bill, right? Because they could care less about what the number one actually means in value, but he's on the $1 bill because they want you to think that he's first, right? But he's not first. He's the first of the second Constitution that you're in, and really is a third Constitution that's called the Constitution of the United States, right? So if George Washington is part of this first Constitution, right? You said first president was black. Yeah. If we want to be honest, if you want to go back to the very first president, right, then you would understand that that first president is what? That first president is somebody who is, that first president is somebody who would have been black, had black in him. I'm about to say the wrong name, so that's why I'm pausing. For some reason, it's not clicking with me the name right now, so maybe somebody can help me. But George Washington is presented as the first president, right? So if George Washington is presented as the first president, then we already know that you've had a bad presentation. Right? If he's considered to be the first president, and we know that he's not, then we have an issue. But nobody's gonna bring that up to you, because if they did, then they'd have to go ahead and say, well, he's, we have to redo a whole bunch of stuff and readdress a whole lot of things. But he's not the first. Matter of fact, George Washington was presented as somebody who had all these great morals and could not tell a lie. But when they came to find George Washington's body in his house, right, when they found out he was dead, they found his wife throwing a lot of his stuff, not all, she couldn't get rid of all of it, but she tried to throw a whole bunch of his stuff into the fireplace, paperwork-wise, because there were a lot of things that she didn't want to come out about him that still came out about him. We know George Washington raped slaves. We know George Washington married his wife, Martha, because she had as many slaves as he did, so they could be on their modest plantation that people still come to worship George Washington. John Hanson, thank you. I was saying John, but I was like trying to say John Monroe and John this and John, and I knew I was wrong. So John Hanson. You said, was I there? No, I know what the people that came to George Washington's house said. Now, if you're saying that they wrote some nonsense, fine. But I do know that George Washington also wrote and had things that are written out about him and kept paperwork. Like George Washington said that he wanted to get you rid of a tyrant king while he himself was a slave owner. I know that much, right? I do know that George Washington was somebody who was raping slaves. I do know George Washington, it's written down, documented, that he had an overseer that beat a black woman mercilessly twice, then told George Washington about it. When George Washington heard about it, he said, yeah, that seems about right. He said, you did well. So we can talk about it, but once again, it's about how it's presented. Right? Like these are things that people have presented to them. And so when you go against somebody's presentation, right? You said they wanted him to be a king, but he said no and chose president. He never wanted to be in power. And that's not 100% accurate either. It's the presentation. George Washington did have issues with the way that they were running things, but let's be honest, George Washington was a deist. He believed that he could be a god. What did George Washington do when he became the president? George Washington he didn't create it per se, but he gave the land for the creation of what we now know as Washington, D.C. Washington is the father god, D.C., District of Columbia, the goddess that sits on top of the Capitol building, right? That's what Washington, District of Columbia means. Now, if you're talking about that and saying George Washington didn't want the power, here's a question for you. Why did he set out land and give it and say that all presidents would live in this land? And George Washington then put black people to serve on that land. We would call it slave owners. He was a slave owner. He was a Virginia slave owner, as were the first 4 out of 5 presidents, right? And really the first 8 out of 10 presidents. And we can keep on going up until like about president, 15 or so, where we're dealing with Virginia slave owners for the most part at like an 80-90% clip. Or they worked for Virginia slave owners, and that's how they got their gig. Basically all of them, right? Except for Andrew Jackson, who was just simply a Tennessee slave owner, right? But when you look at George Washington, you say he didn't want to be president. Sounds great. That's the presentation. That's how he was presented. The question is, though, okay, if he didn't want power, right? He didn't have problems showing up Remember this, when the Civil War, or sorry, you call it the Revolutionary War now, but when the Revolutionary War started, right, when the Revolutionary War started, he would show up to every meeting that they had, and he would show up in full uniform because he wanted them to know that he was going to be the general. He wanted to be the general. That's how he became the general, right? So he was okay with at least having power of being what we called back then, and still called today traditionally, the commander-in-chief, right? And welcome from Russia. I'm doing well. Thanks for being on, right? Washington and Hamilton raised an army against whites. Okay, but George Washington was a slave owner at the same time, had no problem with it. So if we're going to just do that one thing, I'm not saying we can't say he never did anything that could have been, but what was the interest behind that? You know? Yeah, Caesar rejected the crown twice. Exactly. Yeah, we could definitely go there. I understand where you go. I don't know if we have time to do that. But when you're talking about the stuff, if you say, right, you have to understand, okay, George Washington, we know these things about him. We know that he was a deist. We know that he believed he was a god. We know he married his wife. He literally said, because one of the reasons is that she made him twice as rich because she had slaves as well, as many slaves as he did. We know for a fact that George Washington was killing off natives. We know for a fact that George Washington, while fighting the Revolutionary War, one of the reasons he was losing is because he was fighting off natives when he should have been fighting off the English, his own family. We know that George Washington and this tyrant that he hated used to go and celebrate this tyrant's born day and birthday. We know this, right? So we know these things to be true, and yet we're going to keep saying that the presentation of George Washington is correct. Then we got to start figuring out, why are we okay with the cognitive dissonance? I'm black, I'm Hebrew, I'm an Israelite. If you want to put me in a sect of religiosity, that's up to you. But I don't meet the criteria for any of the sects that you probably want me to be in. I meet some of them, but I don't believe that you're evil just because you're white or something like that, if that's your goal. But either way, George Washington is somebody who has been presented a certain way, and so people are going to fight for the presentation, not for the truth, but for the presentation. We're human beings, get over it. Yeah, I am a human being. And if somebody does something to my family, I would come against them as a human being. If somebody did something to you and you didn't deserve it, I would come against them as a human being. So yes, as a human being, I think it's something that we should make sure that we deal in humanity and make sure people are treated as human beings. Right? But once again, people are all about, and thank you for the compliment about the free forms. People are always in an instance trying to be out. John Hanson was the first president. Yes, he was. John Hanson was, but even in that presentation, like we said, George Washington said to be the first president. Well, if George Washington is the first president, why did George Washington say that he had two presidents that he liked before he was even the president? Well, you said here's a fact. Cherry tree that George Washington supposedly chopped down was a Moroccan flag. I don't know. I've heard a little bit about that, but if we be honest about that, just real talk, and being honest about things, not just saying things that would be, I'm not saying that you don't have knowledge, by the way. I'm just saying as far as what my comprehension is, okay? So it might be limited in this regard. George Washington is a Mason, and as the first president, could never disrespect the Moroccan flag, because Moroccan flag is the reason why he had the reason to trade the way that he did and to be a sovereign or be part of a sovereign nation. That's what the United States of America, like a lot of people don't know, what you call the United States flag, or this is flag of the United States of America, that's actually a flag that literally just says that they have the right to trade. That's all flat. Like it's not just a standard. It actually says they have the right to trade. Shalom, Cassandra, how you doing? Right? You said we are all human beings. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Yeah. So if George Washington didn't treat people the way that we should be treated, we should learn from that and talk about it. Correct? You see what I'm saying? People are arguing about the presentation. I don't like the fact that you're saying that George Washington didn't like black people. Well, if he should treat people the way that he wants to be treated, then he should treat black people with respect. Correct? I mean, as far as the shower cap, I don't know what that pertains to, but no, I don't. But if we're talking about treating people with respect, right? Right? Well, we are run by the government. And even Jesus is a perceived thing according to who he actually truly was, correct? So if it's about respect, right, and it's about truth, then we should have respect and we should have truth. Those are things that we should make sure that we do. right? Those are things that we should try to make sure that we do. And if we don't try to do those things, then we have an issue. Thank you very much, Venus. Appreciate that. Oh, wow. Newly Philly, I've never seen that one before. That's cool. Thank you for introducing that. I've never seen that one before. Appreciate you. Right? So if these things are correct, if these people are doing what they did, if people are doing things that are not correct, and we know they are not correct, and we know that we should challenge things that are not correct, then what's the point? You said not the government, it's a world power at work behind the scenes. Yeah, it is a world power. The world power is over the government. If it's a world power, it would by definition be over the government that you're in, and it governs the government. Question for you. What is the definition of capitalism? We should be baptized in the name of Yahweh, Yashra'al, and Ruach HaKodesh. Okay, Lady, I appreciate it. Thanks for being on. Right? And thank you for those of you who are joining the community, right? So if right, what is the definition of capitalism? Somebody said all this stuff. What's the definition of capitalism? See, even the presentation of capitalism, you've been told capitalism is about competition and all these things. What is the definition of capitalism? If you were to Google the definition of capitalism, a lot of you would be surprised if you were to Google the definition of capitalism. Praying testimony, I'm not a Christian, if that's what you're looking for. But what is the definition of capitalism, which is the point of what we're talking about today, right? When you talk about the presentation of things. There you go, right? An economic and political, right, system, right? Because ISM on any word makes it a system, ism, right? Chauvinism, feminism, capitalism, whatever, right? Hedonism, whatever ism you want to put on there, it's a definition of capitalism, right? So capitalism is an economic and political system in which a country's trade and industry is controlled by privately owned corporations or entities rather than by the state. That means every head of state, which, by the way, a head of state, by definition, when you start doing some research, you'll find out a head of state is a monarch. Okay? So if a head of state is a monarch, the head of state is a king. That means every president, every governor, every mayor, every congressman, every Supreme Court justice, they are heads of state. But capitalism says that heads of state don't have power. They have to bow down to privately owned corporations. You see that? So if you, right, so when somebody talks about capitalism, talks about the system, talks about the world government, yeah, government control, world controlled system, that's the definition of capitalism. That anything you see with United States on it, right, because it's usually not United States of America, right, two different corporations, or two different entities, or two different things. United States is a corporation located in Washington, D.C. The United States of America are 50 different states or 50 different countries that have united to be able to protect sovereignty, right? Those are two, or yeah, Facebook, Google, TikTok. The things that we're using, they might not like my saying it, but that's real. Like, according to the definition of capitalism, capitalism says, you've been taught that once again, presentation, Microsoft, yeah, Apple, all these things that we're using, you're using a corporation. You think it's just about branding so that get you to buy something. No, Bill Gates is over a corporation. He's over a corporation, and corporations have more power than the state, unless the state actually deals in its sovereignty. But the corporations won't give the country money, right, if the country doesn't deal in what the corporations tell them to do. So they don't do things without the corporation. If you were presented capitalism, you were taught capitalism your whole life is the thing that you need, because if you're not in capitalism, you're in communism. But communism is just another way of controlling the people. And you were never taught that you're in a republic. A republic is a kingdom. You're not in the United States or the United States of America even. You're in the Republic of the United States of America. You said you're beginning to think everything you've learned is not true or not explained in truth. I mean, a lot of things are not. And thanks for the likes to those on podcasts. We appreciate you, right? So understand. All you learn in school is like a lot of it. Or it's stuff that you're not going to utilize, especially in the system that you're in. So culturally speaking, like, what is it going to help you Is the Pythagorean theorem going to help you to be able to take, people in the hood out of the hood? Right? You see what I'm saying? Like, is making sure that you understand, even let's deal with capitalism because I want to be obedient to Hakkadesh where she's leading us, right? So let's be obedient. We got plenty of time to shift around, right? You said, do I use Deuteronomy 28:68 to say I'm Hebrew? No, I use history to say that I'm an Israelite. I actually know where my people come from. Unlike many people, including a lot of people, whether they be white or black or whatever, I actually know where I come from. I can actually tell you this person came from here, who came from here, who lived here, who gave this and came from this, and this ship gave here, and therefore I didn't need a DNA test to be able to tell me that. A lot of people need to trust what other people tell them about them and hope that it's right. I can tell you who I am, right? And being Shwe, Ashanti Shwe, Mali, Kemetic, of Yashra'al, Moorish, right? Cherokee, Taino, all these things by birth, I can tell you who I am. So yeah, I'm not tripping off that. You're from Morocco? Okay, sure. Bonjour. I know that's not the only way you say hello, but a lot of people in Morocco, you guys learn French, right? So, but anyways, getting back to what we were talking about, it's the presentation. You said you know what capitalism is. You're just saying it evolved into capitalism. Well, first of all, I'll do evolution because evolution, usually people are not even talking about first, which evolution are you talking about? Because there's only 6 types of evolution, right? The words don't evolve, right? Number one. So evolution is not dealing with words. But if you're going to deal with any of the 6, usually you're coming from the mindset of the 5th type of evolution, which is going to be the macro evolution, saying that a species goes to a species or that a word therefore can turn into another word. Words mean what they mean at the end of the day. Now, if somebody's trying to change the presentation of a word to be able to make it to be something different, then that's something different, right? Like, for example, when people talk about gender, right? If you're going to talk about gender, I agree with somebody, word usage being correct. Gender and sex are 2 different things, right? Sex is male and female. Gender is the style that a culture or the style of a male in a culture or the style of a female in a culture. That's what gender is. So when somebody says, oh, I got several different genders, or I identify as this today or this tomorrow, or whatever, you don't use the term correctly. Genre, gender, genre, genealogy, genes. These are specific things saying this is a style in which males are considered to be in our culture. This is a style in which females are considered to be in our culture. If we kept words correct, they would be correct. Now, getting back to capitalism, capitalism is still the same thing it's always been. It is a system. Is capitalism a system? Yes. So has capitalism changed from being a system? I'm not arguing with you. I'm just trying to tell you straight up, like, this is what it is, right? Like, is capitalism still a system? Yes. You said 2 words can have 2 different meanings. Sure. But a word can be broken down very simply, right? There's only one interpretation of a word. What you're talking about are applications. And in definitions, they aren't honest about that in modern society. There's only one interpretation of what somebody says. There can be many applications to what somebody says, but there is only one interpretation of what somebody says. Period. Right? So, for example, when somebody says Amos 3:3, how can 2 walk together except they be agreed? No, it said, how can 2 people walk together except they start in the same place? See, if somebody says 2 people can't walk together unless they're agreed, it means that their application of that can be very different than, hey, if we started this together and we finish this together, then we're going to make sure we do everything in the middle together. 2 different applications come out of the wrong interpretation. A misinterpretation is not another definition. It is simply a misinterpretation. Well, if we redefine a word from what its original state was, what we're saying is it's okay to misinterpret. Redefining is different than going off the definition or saying, well, stuff evolved. Now, if you want to say people's thought process evolved on something, fine. But that's why, like, for example, we were talking about this in our early Rise of Bible study. There's a word. It's very simple. That word is universe. Universe, it literally means uni, one, and verse, a spoken sentence. You can't believe in a universe unless you believe in a single spoken sentence. We believe that would be in the beginning, Yahweh, or in the beginning, Elohim created the heaven and the earth. Or you could say that every universe that he spoke brought something into existence. Let there be light, universe, and there was enlightenment, right? Let the waters be spread out, and let there be arakia, this hard substance in between the waters that are separated. That's a universe, right? So when people say there are multiple universes, what are you talking about? See, you could be correct, but your application might be wrong. So you can see how a bunch of religions or a bunch of people or a bunch of thought processes come where people can't be on the same wavelength Same thing with the presentation of capitalism. Capitalism is ISM. That means it's a system. It's always been a system. And capitalism was something that was being fought against. That's what the Revolutionary War was actually fought against. Capitalism was actually fought against, right? If you lost, just stick around for a little bit. I promise you'll be able to catch up. Yeah, we did speak on the tithe yesterday. You didn't see the upload. Okay, well, I'll try to make sure this uploaded today, this Rising. As soon as we get the live done, give me maybe about 5 minutes after the live, it'll be uploaded. I apologize about that. I think we also have it on our Facebook. I think we have it on. We might not have it on the Facebook page actually from yesterday. So you might have to look on on the podcast. You know, you said I'm just saying slavery and capitalism go hand in hand. Well, yeah. So you had chattel slavery, but capitalism didn't get rid of slavery, did it? 14th Amendment, right? 13th Amendment, technically. 13th Amendment, excuse me. 13th Amendment says that we're not going to enslave you anymore just because you're chattel. So we can't enslave you because you're black. They took that off the table. But they didn't say we're going to stop enslaving. They said we can only enslave you if you are arrested for something. And they said the only person that can go against it is somebody that works for the government. Capitalism, the people who control the capital, they tell the governors what to do, right? Which is why still to this day, if you're sitting there, right? Oh, thankful and grateful that you did, Betty. So that's why if you are with these governors, these people who govern you, right? All these people that are governing you, they are being governed themselves. Said I'm moving too fast, right? Well, it comes to this place of capitalism. ISM, system of what? Capital. Capital, ISM. ISM means system, so it's a system of what? Capital. So who controls the system? He or she that has the capital. What is the capital that most of you are looking for instead of land and other things? You're looking for money, right? Now, money is not even real because unless it's gold or silver backed, it's not even money. Right? Unless you have a gold or silver backing it up, which means that if America, the United States of America, does not have gold or silver to back up what it is, then their money is not even money anyways. It's monopoly money. It's cloth with a 1 or a 5 or a 20 or a 10 or a 50 or a 100 or a 2 spray painted on it, in a sense. Right? And they print it out of thin air, but they're only, watch this, even with their printing it out of thin air, they're only allowed to print it out of thin air if their people who govern them tell them they can. Right? It's not real. So even in that sense, it's been presented to you, right? Capitalism has been presented to you as something, but there's no such thing as what's real. This stuff is not real. You said what? What changed in okay, that changed in 1971. Yeah, I get what you're saying. But capitalism. Now, once again, think about the definition of capitalism. Google it when you have a chance, right? If you want to leave here, Google it and then come right back. But when you're talking about the definition of capitalism, right? When we are speaking on the definition of capitalism, what is capitalism by your definition? Not by what I made up. Remember, I said the burden of proof, a very legal terminology, lawful terminology. The burden of proof is not on me. The burden of proof historically would be what? On those who came before me. His story, fine. Let's listen to his story. What did he say? Right? So the people who made your definition of capitalism, this is what they told you, and they still have it written down today. Google it. It's still true to this day. They're going to use politics. That's why you're Republican or Democrat. That's why you're Green Party. That's why you're Libertarian. That's why you're Communist. That's why you're independent, whatever you want to call yourself. That's why you're that politically. Because they use politics, and what do they also use? Economics. People are scared about the fact they can't get land. How are people going to live? People need jobs. They're going to take your job away if you don't get this type of medical assistance or considered assistance or whatever, right? All these different things that are there, right? Politics and economics, and they use this to what? Control trade and industry. Trade, what you trade. You got to go to their store. You got to do that. You don't grow your own food, do you? You have to go to somebody else's stuff. You don't think about having your own chickens. You just need 3 of them so that you can make sure you have a dozen eggs a week. No, I did not. Right? You have to do those things. Right? And when somebody else tells you, no, you don't have to do these things by law. You can be protected. There's different codes out there to protect you. There's different things that the military themselves do. So if the military does, the United States of America should be following suit. Right? Saying that you can be protected and doing this and doing that or whatever. Right? Like all these different things. All these different things. I come from all over the place, man. My people are from all over the place. I guess I could say I was born in the United States of America, but my people are from all over the place, right? Which is why I have no problem talking to a bunch of different people, right? I mean, it's fine, Kim. I don't, Trump, he's still a president. Understand, Trump is a public servant and he has to serve the masters, right? Like, a president is limited. I don't care if it's Trump. I don't care if it's Obama. I don't care if it's Biden. I don't care if it's Clinton. I don't care if it's one of the Bushes. I don't care if it's Reagan. I don't care if it's Carter. I don't care if it's Nixon. I don't care if it's Ford. I don't care whoever it is. They are public servants. You were supposed to be the masters. But capitalism doesn't teach you to be a master. Capitalism teaches you to be a slave. This is why we have classes on monarchy and sovereignty and marriage. Right now, where we have Natural Medicine 1, Hebrew characters, fibroid cysts, while we have other classes like on American history, Black history, European history, all these different things, because people don't comprehend where this stuff comes from. You've been taught to be subservient, but everybody you come into contact with that works for that government, they're nothing more than public servants. If they are public servants and they serve the public, that means you as the public are the master. What do I think about Africa or Africans? I am African. I love Africans. I love being African. I believe that everything came out of Africa. Science does too. The Bible does too. So, and I believe the more all of us get back to our homeland, all of us get back to being African, so to speak, then we would all be great. We would all go back, right? But understand, or going back and rebuilding home, that's something that's down the road I would like to do. It's not my focus right now, but it's something that's on the agenda for certain. Owning land over there is going to be something that's going to be on the agenda very soon, right? But getting back to what we're talking about is the presentation. So if you've been presented capitalism as something and you don't even realize that capitalism is when they take, by definition, capitalism does not exist unless they take politics, economics, and use it to control your trade and your industry. Your jobs, your food, your clothing, all that stuff. That's what capitalism controls. You were taught it was about competition. But the competition is not yours. The competition is between the private corporations. And one thing private corporations do not compete in is making sure that you are enslaved. This is why you got to have quotas. Once a month in certain places, no matter where I'm traveling, in certain places, you're going to see police officers posted everywhere. Why? Because prisons have these private prisons, private corporations have contracts, and these contracts need to be fulfilled. I better have this many people in my prison, or else you're going to pay a penalty. How do you get away from capitalism? Well, you make sure that you control your own trade or industry. You become sovereign. Even if you were to leave, so you got to understand, like, as somebody who can say, like, I'm somebody who would be cool being in Africa, this and that, or whatever. Understand, in Africa, they're dealing with the same mindset. There might not be as many people that you see that are white all the time around, but it doesn't mean that they're not dealing with the same mindset. This colonial system, it's not even just a colonial system per se, it's a system of worldwide power, right? That has been used all over the place, right? It's a system of worldwide power that's been used all over the place. And these are things that we have to get into a position where it's like, okay, like, what is it that we're going to do to recognize and realize that this thing is bigger than it's bigger than, see, if you could understand, like, there's people who go, man, this Chirac over here, they trying to kill us. It's like, but if you understood it's bigger than Chirac, they trying to do that in Zion and Waukegan too. But if you understood they're not just trying to do that in there, they're trying to do it in Illinois. But they're not just trying to do it. What about Kenosha? What about Pleasant Prairie? What about Milwaukee? That's 2 states. What about all the 50 states? That's America. But what about they doing this in Canada too? There's more MMIW in Canada than there are in the United States of America. And there's way less people in Canada. How are we missing that, right? But we're thinking it's just about us. But this thing is bigger than that. This thing is happening in Mexico too, right? But it's bigger than just Omexi or Mexico or Mexico. It goes to the North America. But what about past North America? It goes into South America. Wait a minute. It goes throughout the whole world. It goes past just being black or white. They've got us tripping over black or white. Now they want us to still consider black on the bottom because it's a system that they set up in place in order for them to make their capital. But the reality of the situation is that it's greater than just that one thing. Like, they're trying to control everything. We're sitting up here talking about, oh, they don't want us to get it together in DC. They don't want us to get it together in LA. They don't want us to get it together in Miami. They don't want us to get it together in H-Town. Like, time out. Like, they don't want you to have power, period. Even though by their own law, if you ever understood it, they're nothing more than public servants. And by the way, they understand they're public servants because guess what? Once again, the definition of capitalism, they serve private corporations. Now, weird. So they don't understand the public piece, but they get the servant piece. Because when the private corporation comes knocking and says, you're going to do this, that, whatever, guess what? Yes, sir, boss. You know, you want to see shucking and jiving. You thought you saw shucking and jiving when you saw Step and Fetch It. You haven't seen shucking and jiving until you've seen a government shuck and jive. Literally, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you haven't seen shucking and jiving until you've seen a United States government bow down. If you don't believe that, here's something for you. It's about presentation. You've been presented that you need to follow what the CDC says because America needs to follow it. But here's something that when I study a lot of stuff that people give me, and they say, hey, you know, what do you think about what my company's saying? And I got to get this stick and I got to do this and blah, blah, right? And so they say, what do you think about that? What are your feelings on it? And I read it. And you know what it'll say? It'll say stuff like, why is it that, you know, by signing this, you say that you don't want to really be in accordance with the CDC and you don't want to be in accordance with America and its system, its values, etc., basically, right? Problem with that is that the CDC is not even an American entity. Can I say that again? Right? You said tell my audience whom they are. They are the people that control you with private corporations. We made that very simple. Capitalism is the control of trade and industry through economics and politics by private corporations who control the state or the country. That's what capitalism is. So anybody fighting for capitalism, that's what you're fighting for. Are people to control your government and govern you and tell you what you're supposed to do, right? That's who they are. Anybody who does that, they fall into they. Okay? Anybody who does that, they fall into they. But once again, right? Like, understand, like, they're telling you that you got to follow what the CDC. The CDC is not an American-run entity. I was just about to get to that. You beat me to it, Sister Trina. Like, the IRS. IRS calling you up talking about this and people saying, oh, you're not American. We're going to throw you in American prisons. They're not throwing you in American prisons because you don't pay bills to the IRS. They're throwing you in private corporations who have contracted out to not only America, but also with the IRS. The IRS has gone to prisons and said, we need you to back us up. If people don't give us our money, then you need to lock them up. We'll make sure that we kick you a little something. CCA. Matter of fact, here's another one. The Federal Reserve. The people who are over your money. The people who tell America when they can print out money. That's why JFK got killed. JFK was trying to tell the Federal Reserve that they could kick rocks. He had found out in the Constitution that it was illegal for them to have printing out money, right? It was illegal for them to print out money or have somebody telling them when they could print out money or have somebody printing out money for them. So he said, we're not going to do business with you guys anymore. Next thing you know, right after that, he gets shot. And nobody knows what it was for. All this stuff. A dude that can't even remember where he was, all of a sudden is the person that pulled the trigger. I mean, heck, if you look at the video, you guys know. I don't know if it's still there. I haven't looked for it in about a year and a half or so, right? Since we taught one of our last classes on... I can't remember what the name of the class was. So it was like a year and a half ago. I haven't taught the class in quite some time. We might bring it back sometime next year. But when we were teaching the class and we were specifically talking about, I can't remember what it's called. Y'all forgive me. But anyways, we gave you guys a YouTube link. There's a YouTube link. Yeah, exactly. The driver shot him. You can look it up and they zoom in for you. All the work has been done. This is stuff released by the government because you can only hold on to stuff a certain amount of time. But all this stuff was public anyways because people had taken news companies and everything like that had taken stuff. And literally, he was the Secret Serviceman is driving the vehicle, right? Secret Serviceman is driving the vehicle. You see JFK and his wife in the back. You see the other Secret Serviceman. You see he's going like this. You see he takes his left hand all of a sudden, reaches for something, pulls out something, goes behind his back. While they're driving, you see him pull something. You see the Secret Serviceman right next to him, who would have heard the shot right next to him. Instead of looking to the left, start going all the way over here and looking the other way. and looking for seconds, rather than if a shot happened, you're supposed to protect the president. Wouldn't you think that you would look at the person you're supposed to protect? Nope, he's looking everywhere else, and then after a few seconds, finally turns back. And I don't know about Sister Jackie Onassis, so I don't want to put anything on her. Jackie Kennedy Onassis, or whatever she called herself at the end of her life. Real talk. She's looking weird too. She does something weird too, right? Because she backs away from the shot first. So when the shot goes off, she moves away from where the shot came from. Then she comes back in, and then she reaches for her husband and acts like she doesn't know where it came from. I'm just trying to tell you. Like, you can look this up for yourself. I'm not telling you lies. These are contextual facts. You can go look it up and you tell me, right? This is all education. So if somebody comes over here trying to tell YouTube we said this, blah, blah, or trying to tell TikTok we said this, nope, this is education. This is strictly what you guys have already allowed to be shown on your platforms, right? The Bar Association is a foreign entity as well. Exactly. Somebody says, I passed the bar. So why have you passed the bar of a foreign entity? Then why are you getting to tell Americans what they're supposed to do in court? Right? Like, I don't think we don't get the concept. This is all real. It's my pleasure, Mwawa. You know, this is all real. This is all real. Like, we're not making this stuff up. All you got to do is look at it. Shalom, Off Grid. How you doing? Yeah, police officers. You got peace officers, you got police officers, but really, police officers, they're foreign too. And by the way, police officers are a continuation of slave patrol. So when you say slavery is over, then why do you have police officers? You wouldn't have police officers if there wasn't slavery. Police officers go out there to make sure that they can lock people up if they fall into certain legal guidelines according to the 13th Amendment. And you've all had your stuff signed away when your parents made you 14th Amendment citizens. You can get out of it when you decide that you're going to control your own trade and industry and therefore not have to worry about somebody telling you your politics or your economics. That's what capitalism is. If somebody gets to tell you about politics and economics and through your affiliations, and then they tell you that you have to go through them for trade and industry and you can't control anything within yourself, then guess what comes next after that? Guess what comes next after that? What comes next after that is then private corporations have the right to come in and control the heads of state. It's by definition. I literally just told you what you could just Google. Look up the definition and you will find it. Look at the definition of a monarch. Look up the definition of monarchy or a monarch, right? You got to look up both so you can get it because they're very crafty in the way that they put that, right? Look up the definition of a head of state so you will find out that a head of state is the same as a monarch. And now you will see who's being controlled. They are servants. The problem is that you don't know the power you have as the public. And so if any time you as a realize that you are the master, the president has to serve a public servant before he has to serve a private corporation. But you don't know because the United States corporation is part of capitalism. That's a system, right? The United States of America actually fought against capitalism. Now, they were fighting for slaves, right? But they actually fought against capitalism. So it's actually interesting. The very thing that fought for slavery, for chattel slavery as the system, who lost, created the Constitution that allows those of us that actually want to get out of slavery to be free, because the people who wrote the Constitution of the United States of America from 1789, right, and the one that you're dealing with enacted like around no, I had it right, 1789. When they wrote that Constitution, they were writing it to protect themselves from being under capitalism. That's what they knew what was coming, right? They still wanted chattel slavery though. Capitalism wasn't going to get rid of slavery, but capitalism said, hey, if you're a slave owner, I get to tell you what you do with your slaves. They didn't like that. That's what the war was fought on in 1776. England was saying, we're going to tell you what to do with your slaves and we're going to tax you. They said, we can't have that. That's what the war was fought on. So the solution, once again, sovereignty. The solution, can you control your own food? In an apartment complex, you can grow your own food. I mean, hey, within our community, you can grow some food. I can grow some food. You can grow some fruit. I can grow some vegetables. When it comes time to trade, instead of paying somebody for some food that we don't know whether it's real or not, we can just simply trade food. I mean, we have enough people set up where if we really wanted to, at some point, we could start just saying, hey, once a week, do you mind driving a couple hours and meeting so-and-so who's going to meet you and trade some food with you? And then you guys in your community, you guys can have this and we can have this. Like, it's not actually that difficult. Something simple, bartering, right? Something simple. What about controlling your own land? That's why we're working on Yah's land project. Control your own land. If you control your own land, you control a lot. Heck, if you want to make sure that your woman feels secure, make sure you have land to where you can have common law on your land. And your land will be allodial. Allodial. That means can't nobody tell you what to do, basically. If I can make it real basic. Can't nobody tell you what to do with your land if you're a sovereign. Go get your passport and make sure when you get your passport, if you need to get that DS-11 to update it or whatever, but when you get your passport, make sure that you put on there very clearly that you are not and not have ever been a United States citizen. If you need help with it, go to the sovereignty class, or if you want, some kind of direction with it or whatever, we can set something up, right? But go get that done. When you get that done and that's updated, even if they don't give you the passport, it gets updated as soon as you do it in the system. That means from that point on, you're even on a do not detain list. That means if they pull you over, they can't detain you. And if they detain you, if the officer's foolish enough to let him to still, as you're being honorable and just simply saying, this is who I am, I don't have to have this, I don't have to have this license, I don't have to drive. Matter of fact, I don't drive, I travel, all this stuff, and they get upset with you, when they take you to prison, right? You take everybody to court and you say, you guys are going to have to pay me my time. Like that's what you get to go and say, pay me my time that you wasted because I'm not part of your system. I'm not contracted to you. Like these are very simple concepts. This is why we say be in the system, but not of it. I'm not trying to make the system better. This system is designed to keep people in slavery. I'm not trying to make that better. What I'm trying to do is say, hey, you know that you can be free. That's a different mindset. People are trying to say we need to make America better. America is like the system that you're in. You think every time you see United States, you think that that's the same system. You said flawed doesn't fix flaw. Right. You can't use a flawed system to fix a flawed system. That's why people keep saying, we need to vote a bunch of black people into office. We need to get these natives in. We need to get these women in. Okay, you're getting the women in. You're getting the black people in. You're getting native. Now, not to the level that you want, I get, but you're getting them in. Question for you. Have you gotten your, we made sure Stop Asian Hate. Did you get your Stop Black Hate Crime bill yet? Did you get that? Dennis just contacted us. We're going to start having meetings about this stuff more regularly, but we can't talk about it on these lives because people are getting crazy on these lives. Why doesn't the government accept sovereignty? They do. They just don't want you to be sovereign. But they have to. If you do everything lawfully and legally to become sovereign, they got to leave you alone. You said black has no standing law? Black has no standing law. Yes, agreed. Matter of fact, black or Negro, all that stuff is considered to be an artificial person. At the end of the day, I can say I'm black, this and that, or whatever, but legally on documentation, I understand I'm a natural person. So the Bible is a major book of control. It's supposed to teach you how to have self-control. If somebody's wielding it to tell you that they need to control you, then yeah, it becomes that. I agree. Which is why we should get away from people that teach us to be controlled by the Bible rather than use the Bible to set up sovereignty. The Bible says, be in the system, but not of it. That's what the word world or cosmos with a K, that's what it means. You're in a system. You got to deal with a weird system, a wicked system that's trying to control you, but you shouldn't be of that. That shouldn't have a hold of you or your family. It doesn't say, hey, it's okay to be, if you're born somewhere, you automatically have to take on the nationality of it. That's 14th Amendment stuff. That says that if you're born here, we get to control you. That's why the birth certificate is there. Matter of fact, it's illegal to use the Social Security number as a point of ID, as a form of ID. You know that, right? It's illegal. Yet, you will go ahead and do that. But the Bible says, man, don't have any marks or anything on you like that. Don't have anybody controlling you by a number. Like, they're public service. They serve you. You said Constantine had the scribes translated. Constantine had a whole bunch of people have an argument about it. But before all this stuff was there, this stuff was written. And you can find it. And if you know Paleo-Hebrew, you'll be able to read it for yourself. Was Yashra'al, that's who you talking about when you say Jesus, was he black or white? He was definitely black. According to the word, according to the scripture, according to what he looks like in Revelation, according to what David and Solomon and others look like, according to the fact that he hid in Kemet where black people were. And here's the deal that I tell people, even if you don't like the Bible, even if you say the Bible's no good, okay, you say that you don't believe in the Bible, get past that. You know why? Because if you're going to be sovereign, people who are using sovereign things against you to make sure that that you're not going to be sovereign, they use the Bible. They pervert it. That's why you got 3 branches of government. Where do you think that came from? Does that sound familiar? Father, Son, Holy Spirit? George Washington, going back once again to the way he was presented. George Washington, he's considered to be a father god. Washington, father. Columbia, who's on top of the Congress building, that's mother god. Mother, father, God principle right there. We can see band 50V, the people who are moderators, we kind of known them for a while and had conversations outside of this and stuff like that. That's who we kind of trust to moderate. But over time or after a conversation or two or whatever, we can see about that. You said maybe silly. Derek said maybe silly, but do you believe books of the Bible that have been removed? Yeah, I believe in books of the Bible that have been removed. Once again, it's control. People are controlling the narrative. People are controlling the narrative. People are trying to get you and I to believe that something is or isn't, and they're lying about the narrative even. Do we have a book list? We have certain books that we would say are great for you to learn, but we talk about culture first. So if anything, learn about culture. Learn about what these things actually meant in culture. He said, I thought Washington was agnostic and a Freemason. He was a Freemason, but he believed that he was a deist. He believed that he was going to become a god. As a Mason, he was there's rumors whether he was 33rd or 32nd. Either way, he was pretty close to the top. If he was 33rd degree Mason, he couldn't be a 33rd degree Mason without swearing the oath of allegiance to Baphomet. I mean, he believed in spirituality. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't be like, we can look at stuff and just simply be where they are. And just simply look at what they say. He didn't believe like what people say when people think he was Christian. He wasn't a Christian for sure. But he believed in the Bible and certain things in the Bible that have power. All day, every day. All day, every day. All day, every day. Right? Yeah. So in your opinion, what's the best translation of the Bible out there today? Once again, I'm not about translations as much as I am. Yeah, we put these on YouTube channel, hashtag FindKofi, hashtag FindKofi. But I say all the time, culture is better than the Bible source. But if we would go English, for example, I would always say 1611 King James Version, not just the King James Version, 1611 King James Version, the original translation. Because it's more accurate, it's more true. Even though there's some lies in there too, you got to know culture about, but it's more accurate, more true, more interpretations are closer, which means your application of it will be better. If you're but even I would say like, the Kefir might be good too. The Ethiopian Bible has a lot of great stuff, including the English version of it. Learning stuff in Paleo Hebrew so you can just learn the original text for yourself. Those are things that would be good, but it's all about presentation, like I said, and presentation has to do things specifically with, when we talk about presentation of things, presentation is everything. If the Bible's presented to you through the wrong culture, you will mess up all day, every day. If the Constitution is presented to you the wrong way, you will mess it up every day. If George Washington is presented to you the wrong way, you will mess it up every day. If your hair is presented to you the wrong day, you'll have people on here that come here so many people on here, black and white, have came on. Again, we've been gone for a week and it's the same thing. Oh man, his dreads this, look at this. First of all, black people don't have dreads. Somebody who dreaded us told us that when we locked our hair, it was dreadful. But you don't find dreadlocks in our culture, you find locks. You see what I'm saying? And you will teach it to your children the wrong way as well. Amen to that, Dennis, for sure. And somebody said, wow. Let's see. Yes, I believe in the creation story of the Bible, even though it's probably a lot different than what you think it is because it's culturally correct and not culturally incorrect. It's probably you learned it. Am I a Christian? How do I feel about paganism? I'm not a Christian, number one, because Christianity has paganism in it. But paganism is a religion. It's not a people, it's a religion, or a form of religion. And I believe that it's something that's based off of inaccuracies, just like many things. Just like I believe Christianity is based off of inaccuracy. That would have worked better on Halloween. You got to be a little better than that, though. It's creative, though. Kind of, sort of. I've heard that joke overused, though. But thank you for being on. Appreciate you. But yeah, so these are the things. You said, can you explain the affidavit of truth? Do I need to file one for sovereignty? Sovereignty, once again, the main thing that sovereignty is a lifestyle, right? Let's present it. Once again, how are things being presented? Sovereignty is a lifestyle. That's why we teach a class on it. Sovereignty is not as simple as, I don't have to pay taxes. Sovereignty is not as simple as I don't want to be pulled over by the police. Right? Sovereignty, I've learned from quite a few people. one of the greatest teachers that I feel of sovereignty is probably Yashra'al. He'd probably say no, he isn't. But there's a lot of people that I learned from. And experience. Once you go through certain things and you start doing things sovereign, as a sovereign, you really don't learn what sovereignty is about until people start testing your sovereignty, and you have to start making decisions and having faith and character to be able to fight and keep said sovereignty, right? But sovereignty, as far as if you're talking about how do you start the process, once again, it's as simple as getting that passport changed. So we teach you how to do that. We show you different things how to deal with that, etc. Right? So his name is Yusef, 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 last name L, or what we would consider last name L, E-L, like Elohim or Elohim, Yusef L. And just listen. And and by the way, he's gonna curse. He's gonna do some stuff like that. So if you can't handle that, you might not want to listen. Let me just give you a warning. However, if you're looking for information and you're looking for some things, even spiritually, that you might not ever think about as far as how this stuff ties together, I feel like there's almost nobody better in the game, if anybody. That's just my personal opinion, though. I don't like to opine, so that's just my opinion. Doesn't have to be yours, right? Can you work and still be sovereign? Of course. At some point, though, you become unemployable. You should want to get to a place where somebody can't employ you, you employ. Remember, the goal is to be the master, to have public servants. If people want to still be in the system or whatever, fine. Like, try to teach them, try to tell them. But if they want to, hey, I mean, if you're part of the system and you want to be a public servant, then you might as well serve my company. I'll treat you better than what they do, though. Will you lose Social Security when you go off grid? No. Matter of fact, you can't ever really get rid of your Social Security number. Unless what we're doing, or some of you have already done, like Off Grid has done some of this already, and he might know this as well. But I learned that once we get this land in order, we can actually have people not have to have Social Security numbers anymore, because there's basically, if you don't want to, well, I know there's other ways people do, like they write a letter saying they don't want anything, any benefits or privileges, etc. And that works to a certain extent, at least because it gives you something written, a date that, hey, from this point on, I really haven't been dealing with benefits or privileges. The only thing that you can be taxed on are benefits and privileges. The only thing that really makes you part of the United States corporation is because you're dealing with certain benefits or privileges still. However, well, I'm Shri. I guess, we're Millennium City, kind of ish. Millennium City, yeah, Millennium City, I say, like kind of that area more so than anything else. Even though that's a new land project, if you will, over there. But getting back to what we were saying, like, yeah, you basically had to understand, like, this thing is all encompassing, and a lot of people, but you can, yeah, exactly, you can create the town, and once we get this property, and you have this there, and you have these people, all you have to do is just say, okay, you have a belief system that you go by, right? You have land that's allodial and stuff, but you have a belief you go by, you have land that people live on, and then lastly, all you have to do is say, we have a plan for our senior citizens. Right? If you have a plan that's the key part on there. If you have a plan that's written out for your senior citizens, you have your own land, and you have a certain belief system, right? Then you don't need a Social Security number anymore. You can actually get rid of it at that point. So, these are things that are legal. We've just been taught that they're not, and people don't want you. And a lot of this stuff, like we said, we hold some of these things for some other conversations offline or on Zoom or something else, because you have to be careful who you give some of this information to, because people use this to get out of all types of wild, weird stuff. Like, people have used this to get out of, rape of underage children, because they know about, UCC 1-308. So you have to be careful who has this knowledge, because people can use it in perverted manner as well. It's there to protect rights, and you have the right to really do anything as a human being, but law is supposed to protect rights so that your right doesn't infringe upon mine. So I, as a sovereign, don't believe you should be able to kill somebody or rape somebody, do something else. I, as a sovereign, believe if you infringe upon the rights of somebody else, you deserve to be under the jail. Right? I have no problem with sending people to jail if they deserve it. If you did something wrong, you deserve prosecution, right? And you deserve to be there, right? However, there's other things that are at play. Yeah, we could talk about the straw man and all those things. That's not really what my focus was. Well, I guess you could say the straw man, it goes in there as well. But even the straw man is something if you know how to use it to your benefit, because there are certain times somebody will say, well, we need you to come to court. If you show up and they say, are you such and such, your straw man? You say, no, I've come to represent that. And I've come here for a limited time to represent that straw man, because that straw man is what's on trial. The straw man, if you haven't gotten it, by the way, that's your birth certificate. Now right. So you can literally show up to a trial, and when they say, "Are you this person?" No, I'm not. That's a representation of who I am, and I've come here to represent that straw man. Now you got to make sure, if you're going to talk like that too, make sure that you're not getting certain benefits or privileges. To make sure you're sovereign, because all they got to say is, well, you and your straw man receives this and that. Do you receive this and that too? Because if so, then you are the straw man. They can get, if they know, some of them don't even know that much, but if they know a little something, they can hit you with something too, right? But you got to be complete in your sovereignty. Don't just speak certain things but not have certain things in order, because that's not lawful. We believe in obeying the law. Render Caesar's things to Caesar. Be lawful, right? Be in the system. However, Yah's things to Yah. Don't be of it. Right? You got to know the language. Even in what I just said, you got to catch the language. I mean, it can become like another Black Wall Street. First and foremost, we're trying to make sure that there's wealth. We're trying to make sure that there's health there. We're trying to make sure that there's going to be running water. We're obviously going to make sure that there's going to be sewage. We're going to make sure that there's food growing. We're going to make sure that there's solar energy, all these different things. However, at the end of the day, we're going to make sure certain things that weren't done. We learned from other people and our ancestors that have gone through certain things. We want to make sure we're protected. So we got to have, weaponry. That means if we have sovereignty, you can have as many weapons as you want. That also means we have to trust people that are coming in too. That means we have to train them. That means that we have to make sure that, people can be protected. How do you protect your woman and your children if anybody can come on your land? Do you know that police officers can't come on private property unless you say that they can? Or if they come on that property, they better have some real good reason to, which is why we got to make sure people know sovereignty, because you can't be living on sovereign land, but then you have one person that's not sovereign. There are court cases. We're all about case study law. There are court cases out there where people have gone after, like, for example, this is Catholic, but it's still something we can learn from. They were going after this Roman Catholic school or something. I think it was a school in Florida, and they wouldn't let the police, or they wouldn't let certain things go. They were like, I think it was vaccination. They wouldn't let anybody get vaccinated. They were like, we're not going to do vaccination, this and that. They were like, well, we can shut you down if you don't get vaccinated. They're like, no, we're Roman Catholic, private. We're not even considered to be an American, this and that, or whatever. You know what their loophole was to get around that? Because every Roman Catholic church you go to, it's not even part of the United States of America. It's another country. But you know how they got around that? You know how they got around that? They got around that because they said, that one person that works for you, they still get benefits and privileges from the government. So since they're not sovereign, everybody else might be sovereign. But since that person's not sovereign, we're going to come in there and we're going to say that everybody's got to do stuff. That's how wild and crazy. Like, people don't believe this stuff, but that's why you got to know law. And people keep teaching you not to be about law, not to be about law. They are people that are traitors to you and I, because they're okay with you being governed, capitalism, and having the people that govern you, who are supposed to be your protectors, have to bow down to some private corporation or entity. He said you're a living person, not a dead sea, that they have our certificate and make money off of us. By the way, yeah, that's fine. At some point you can tell them, keep all the benefits and privileges. You can write a letter, to the government. You can write a letter to the IRS, like, hey, any benefits and privileges that come with my Social Security number, until you get rid of it, you can tell them, like, anything that happens, feel free, have the right to make whatever money you want. I don't want any money that's attached to my Social Security. Whatever you're going to do, go ahead and do it. And understand, I don't want any benefits or privileges. That's one of the ways that you get away from people trying to use your Social Security number still. These are things that are very simple, but we haven't been taught it because we don't think like, we don't even use the Bible correctly, where we're supposed to use it to become free. It's the presentation. You said there's paganism in the Bible. Do you mean it's there and endorsed, or it's in there? It talks about it. It speaks about it, right? Jeremiah chapter 10, verses 1-5. It speaks against it, right? Don't be like the pagans. Don't go into the woods. They go into the woods. They chop down trees. They nail the trees so they'll stand straight up. They paint it silver and gold. He said, don't be like them. Don't be like their belief system. Don't worry about the seasons or the times that are changing and be afraid. Oh my goodness, it's going to be dark, winter solstice. So therefore we have to make sure that we appease the gods. Hallows Eve, or we go even further, the closer we get to winter solstice, where we now have Saturnalia. We call it Christmas. He says, don't be like them, right? Many different things about paganism mentioned in that regard, because those things are not things that we're supposed to worry about. They're afraid of the signs and wonders. So they to appease the gods, they do certain things to appease the gods. We don't believe in those gods. We don't even believe in God, G-O-D, because that's a Germanic deity. We believe in Elohim. We don't appease that. So yes, that's what I meant, by it's in the Bible. So do you think this info should be placed in education? Of course. As a matter of fact, it legally could be. You have to fight for it. You have to actually have people that sign off on it, and the teacher has to be given the right to choose whether they want to teach it. So if you have a teacher that wants to teach this stuff, and you have a community, at least enough signatures on whatever your state guideline or city guideline says, this stuff can be taught in schools. But that's why we teach. We do homeschooling. We also open that up. People don't necessarily take, on the old YouTube platform, we try to do that where we opened it up for, where we wanted people to go ahead and sign up so that, we could homeschool the parents, and the parents therefore could homeschool the children. We could teach the parents how to teach the children. A lot of people didn't sign up for it. So we just kind of left it there. But that's something that is really it's not the school's responsibility to teach your child. It's really your responsibility to teach your child, right? So, if it's your responsibility to teach the child, I don't really worry about the school. The school shouldn't be teaching our children, but the system that's set up has it to where you have no choice. You feel like you have to have the system. I actually liked seeing 2020 happen the way it did, because I saw a lot of people that were doing like Uber Eats and DoorDash and whatever the other one is, Postmates and all this stuff like that, right? I saw a lot of them, whatever the one you go to the store and shop for people with all these different ones. I saw people taking their children, and their children were actually taking orders and stuff, running with them, right? So they were actually teaching their children. Like that was an amazing thing for me. I was like, wow, that's a blessing. That's a blessing, How do you sign up? Just get in contact with us. So I got to get ready to take my leave. So thank you all. I'm on a little longer than what I thought I would be. Let me get ready to take my leave, but I'll go ahead and put up some information if you want to find out information, if you want to be part of things that we're doing, if you want to know about classes, if you want to know about some of the stuff that we can only talk about on Zoom, because people try to find any excuse they can to be able to stop truth. So if you want to look, YouTube channel, #FindKofi, #FindKofi. Here's a number to text us at. You can screenshot this stuff, write it out real quick. Here's another number while you're screenshotting this. If you want to write this number down, you can also text us at 202-599-7312. Again, that's 202-599-7312. You can also go to Kofi-40.com. We got a lot of updates to make. They will be made as soon as possible. Like I said, I'm probably going to start utilizing, not this week, but once Shabbat finally ends come Sunday, this Sunday coming up will be the first time in a long time that I'm kind of able to free myself, relax a little bit, start really sewing in to this the way that it needs to be again. I've been sewing, obviously, but I promise you a lot more effort could be put in. We're going to start having our meetings where people can come offline and we can start having more meetings and different things. So we're looking for those things. You can go to the Kofi of 40 podcast, by the way, to catch up on a lot of stuff too. If you want to ever join in live or call in through the podcast or something like that, you got to have the Podbean app, Podbean. Have the Podbean app. When you have the Podbean app, you can call straight in, and you can actually make a comment we can hear. I'm going to try and get Facebook going back again. I got to get my devices and stuff in order and get, I'm going to try and have the different rooms I'm in and stuff, have a place to where I can know I always have certain things in a specific order so we don't have to worry about jumping off. We did a little bit of that just recently just because we got blocked, but we're going to get those things. If you want to support us too, please feel free, to learn about all the stuff we've been talking about offline. Also too, feel free to contact TikTok every chance you get, if you don't mind. You don't have to. We're not saying you did, but it would be a great help if you contact TikTok and say, hey, please stop messing with Kofi_40 and Kofi_42. Like, he's not selling things illegally, but you keep saying he is, right? He's not saying hate speech, even though you keep trying to say he is. It's very apparent that you're okay with allowing him to, be shadow banned and things of that nature. Why is it that he's being accused of things that he's not being accused? That would be of great help. And talking about affidavits, by the way, at some point, some of you, if you would like to help, I might ask you to sign an affidavit and send it to us. The reason why is because an affidavit is just a promise before the Most High, and it's one of the most legal strong things you can use as a witness, right? And so if it's one of the most legal things you can find, as a witness, so to speak, or have, we might use a bunch of them to let them know that, hey, if you keep messing with this community, we're ready to do whatever's legally there. And if that means you're going to see what sovereignty really looks like, and you're going to bless us, and hey, you might have to pay for this land, right? You might have to mess around. The thing you were trying to block us from, you might be the conduit. So, we might have to look into that. But I'm going to give them, legally, I have to give them a little more time. So I'm going to give them a little more time to see what they say. And then if they don't say anything, we'll see what the next step is. So y'all pray for us. We're going to make sure that we do things legally and honorably, and make sure that you got the Kofi of 40 podcast, right? Look for it, subscribe to it, all that. So just in case we go through something wild again, and if you don't want to look for Facebook or Instagram or some other platform, if we have to go through something again like we just did, where this time they tried to take us off both of them. Matter of fact, I think on the original one now, they're trying to say we can't go live on that ever again, right? So we're looking at doing certain things. We might even start a third page to make sure that we get enough people, so if we have to go through something again, you can still come on TikTok and find us, right? That's the life of the Shadow Band. We appreciate your support, though. Thank you so much. Please, our prayers that you be hearers of this, but doers as well. So don't just stop at hearing it, do it as well. Observe and do. Also, too, please make it a point, please, ma'am, please, sir, to check out my wife, the Honorable Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer. She's a herbalist. She's a chemist. She's a biologist by degree, by the way, for those who need that. She's amazing. She's great. She's awesome. She's an awesome minister. She's an awesome woman of Yah. She's an awesome wife. That's the reason I married her, because she was already a wife, and who you find as a wife found as a great thing, obtaineth favor from Adon, right? So I'm thankful and grateful to her, thankful and grateful to each and every one of you, even those people who said wild things, and thank you. We had to institute, unfortunately, being a little harder on certain people who were saying wild stuff or whatever, but we got to do what we got to do at this point. If Satan wants us to fight back, we'll fight back. If the system wants us to fight back, we fight back. I thank you guys so much. I appreciate the king and queen in each and every one of you. Even if you're not living inside of this kingdom or queendom yet, we appreciate the potential king and queen in each and every one of you. As always, this has been Pastor Kofi, aka the Shadow Band One, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. This is our year of pursuing the promises, and we're going to pursue the promises of the Most High, so that next year we will be able to live in that which we pursued. So we're thankful and grateful for you guys pursuing those promises. Hashtag finish strong in that year pursuit. We're not finished yet. We're not done yet. We got so much more to come, right? And y'all, I'm telling you, when we hit next week, you're going to start seeing some things now that I'll be a little more free again. And especially the week after that, you're going to see some stuff that's going to be clicking. You're going to see some people that are in position already that just kind of been champing at the bit, waiting. Like, you're going to see some things move. Be ready for the move. Don't miss it, all right? We appreciate you. We appreciate all those things. We appreciate your time, your talent, your effort, your energy, your produce, etc. We thank you so much for everything that you're doing to help the community. And until next time, remember, as always, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason this world changes for the better. Bare minimum will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family.